Hey, Fit Travel Tribe, this is Mike, and welcome to our Year in Review episode. Just in a moment, I'm going to play a recording that neither Maryssa or I knew was ever going to go live or public, and it's from a year ago today, or about a year ago today, while we were in New Zealand. And we just recorded, it's really the first time that we recorded anything on the fly shortly after we started our podcast, and we thought, hey, maybe we'll use this content. But we shared some of our insights, our goals really for the year, and we're going to unpack those in this episode. We hope to share some useful, super valuable tips and insights that we gained this year, and just share a little bit of ourselves with you. We do on a regular basis, but we love the opportunity to just dive into why we do what we do. And so we're going to share that with you now. Here comes a clip from New Zealand. You can hear the rumble and roar of a relatively low-powered vehicle that we were driving around the countryside in New Zealand. Even kind of feel like you're sitting in the car with us when we drive by some sites. And then Maryssa and I will come back and we'll chat. 2019 goals. What do you think, babe?
I would like to work on being more positive and more patient and forgiving with people. I would like to see more of the U.S. and see more of the place where we live, so Houston. Kind of that surrounding area, and then the other cities in Texas. And I would like to really work on adding some cardio and fitness routine, eating healthy, and get financially set, pay off some debts, and just work really hard.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, baby? 2019 goals?
Yeah, I'd like to continue developing our platform. And have all of the different wheels that we've talked about turning. Like a legitimate business. Having all of the moving parts of a legitimate business. Increase our cardio by 30 minutes 3 times a week.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's pretty spectacular. I'm angry.
Sorry, you guys, we're driving in New Zealand, if you're listening to this. And it's beautiful.
Welcome, Fit Traveler. Thanks for listening in today as we dive into another fun topic where Maryssa and Mike aim to deliver life-giving insights and encourage you to live a healthier, more adventurous lifestyle. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the show, you guys.
Hello, hello.
Maryssa and Mike here. We are excited that you guys are joining us for another episode.
We're recording this episode the day that it airs. We want to do something significant, something unique and interesting for this episode, and so we decided to kind of collect all of our thoughts and energy and then come home, record, and publish right away.
Yeah.
Unedited, unscripted kind of. And
it's going to be a good one. It's basically what we decided to do was talk about our year-end review. And so what that means is that we kind of listened back to our goals, which you guys just heard a little clip of, and we were laughing a little bit because you set these goals at the beginning of the year and you have these high hopes, and then at the end of the year it's cool to reflect and see how close you came, and also kind of laugh at yourself for
Yeah, for me what sticks out is we recorded just on a hand recorder in a car in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have any intentions. It was really just practice at that point of publishing. And we're by no means, like pro podcasters or anything even close. But just, after you've done something 15, 20, 30, 40 times, you develop a little bit better skill, not great skill, but necessarily, but better skills. So thinking back about how awkward it was for us to record just that little clip in the car, and then we were like driving down the road on the wrong side of the road, if you have driven overseas anywhere, for us. So it was on the wrong side of the road. We all of a sudden see one of the sites in New Zealand. And I joke a lot because our trip to New Zealand and then a couple other places we've been this past year, I call it the second best effect, because any photo or anything that we ever shared with our family, friends, or audience was always the second best image or video captured, with one exception, the waterfalls.
Yeah, those are great.
All of the hundreds of waterfalls that were forming from all of the glaciers melting, but yeah, every time we stopped, we're like, or we'd be driving, we see, we got to get that, that picture, but we couldn't stop where we were at. So we drove up a little ways where we thought was going to be a great picture. We get back on the road, and seconds later, it's like an even better view.
Yeah. Just was great view after great view. We really couldn't have a bad view. New Zealand was amazing and beautiful. So awesome. Yeah. We
just have so much to be thankful for. And so we like to pause once in a while and we try not to be salesy. We don't like to be pushy or persistent. This is, of course, a business opportunity for us. We want to do this full time for you guys, really, for people that will likely, we hope to meet someday, but we'll likely never meet most of our audience. And so we like to do things to try and add value in the best way that we know. Happens to be fitness and travel at this point. And that's an area that we both have a lot of experience, interests, love, desire to do for a long time. And so that's what we're doing with this platform. So we like to take a time out once in a while just to say thanks. So this episode is kind of that. You didn't hear any sales advertisements or anything, any plugs for anything that we're doing. You guys know where to find that if it interests you. This episode is strictly designed to give you guys some material, some info, some inspiration, whatever it is to you, to take you into next year with some speed, with some excitement.
Yeah. So we're just going to kind of cover a couple things that, what we learned, what we, didn't learn, or what we wish we would have done more of, and things like that in 2019. And then if you tune in later on in the new year, we're also going to do an episode of our 2020 goals and the things that we're looking forward to. Some
changes that we're making to the platform, some awesome stuff that hopefully it's all going to benefit you guys. That's our energy and our effort right now.
Absolutely. So you want to start us off with some of the points that you learned?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, man. The list is small. I'm not the brightest crayon in the box. But, no, we again, don't have a huge script for this episode. So just kind of shooting off the cuff. I'm really bad with analogies or sayings or different things. I usually get halfway through and I'm like, wait, how does that one go? Anyway, you get the point.
Cuff. Yes.
Yeah. One thing that I learned this year, has nothing to do with business or really this platform, but so the amount of compassion that you should have for folks around you is oftentimes more than you realize. So I'll word that a little bit differently. The amount of compassion that I need to have for other people is far more than is natural to me, natural in my mind. So I have a number of situations this year, but also like reflecting on past situations when different things happen, where I realized that whatever idea was in my mind at the time that I acted out of sorts, so to speak, was very false. So I just had a preconceived notion about how things were or how things should be or should have gone. And so I kind of fixed my behavior based on that perspective. And one book I remember reading, it's a very, very short audiobook is where I found it. It's called Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. He has some content that I'm sure has come out many years, but it's recently out in the Harvard Business Review. And he put out this book. I listened through it. And one of the things that he talked about is kind of measuring your expectations. So, try things for X. This is how I read it and listened to it, so I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he basically says, try things for a year and then look back and see how it went. See if anything went according to your expectations. And that was a big theme for Maryssa and I this year, is we wanted things to go different ways. And we had a phenomenal year. It was not a bad year at all, but we wanted certain things to go certain ways, but ultimately when it didn't, we thought back and I'd say in the past, I'd say a year or 2 years ago, we would just beat ourselves up. But it was easier to look at it through the lens of, well, maybe my expectations weren't proper. Now, to draw a very fine line, I think there's an extreme difference between goal setting and expectation setting. So I'm talking about expectations now. I don't believe that you should set quote unquote reasonable or realistic goals on your own, because you're likely to cripple yourself or set too low of goals. If you need a fire in your butt for goal setting, go listen to Grant Cardone, anything that he puts out. If you go read his book, 10X, I've listened to it probably 5 times on Audible, just to ingrain some of his philosophies in my mind. But anyway, reframing expectations to be more appropriate for where I'm at in life.
Yeah.
And I think that relates to a lot of our audience, because, and I'm kind of talking to you, audience, and to Maryssa, as if we're all kind of sitting here at the table together. But one thing that I recognized is oftentimes when I feel anxious, I'm maybe talking over some of the things that you want to talk about because it's something you and I talk about a lot. But oftentimes when I feel anxious, upset, angry, if I ever feel hatred toward anyone, it's because my expectations are wrong. Very rarely, unless you're driving in Houston traffic, very rarely do people ever do things to intentionally try to hurt you. Tim Ferriss shared, I don't remember where he heard it, but Tim Ferriss shared on one of his podcasts, never attribute to malice what you can attribute to laziness, or there were some other words in there, but basically he said most people kind of take offense to things when it's never meant to be offensive. Yeah, so very few people walk around, with a knife and just want to
wound you.
Hypothetically or metaphorically wound you. Ultimately, people want to be loved. They want to love other people. They want to experience relationship. And so I had some really awesome experiences this year that helped open my eyes about compassion. What about you?
I like that. So mine is similar, but it's kind of on the reverse side. So I do a lot of worrying. And so my biggest thing that I learned, and I'm still learning, currently working through, is how to reframe my mindset so that I'm not worried all the time. And it relates a lot to all aspects of my life, but I feel like there are a lot of times where I'm worried about, what are people thinking? What are they going to do if I do a certain thing? What is going to happen tomorrow? A lot of worries about, finances, stress, my dog, all sorts of things that are just so silly that I don't need to worry about and that are really out of my control. And so I think that the biggest thing that I learned is to reframe and kind of let go of some of that control a little bit, because if I'm trying to control everything, most of the time, just kind of like you were saying, it's not going to go the way that we plan, but there's no use worrying about it on the front end and kind of building it up and talking about all of the what ifs and all of the things that could potentially go wrong, because I think it just really gets in the way of the enjoyment and the just living in the present moment and really enjoying your time. So that's definitely one that I want to work on, continuing to bring into the next year. But I'm definitely feeling a lot less of the weight of the worry.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful and interesting to, at the same time, to watch you grow through that, because I've walked through it with you over the last couple of years, and it's been really enlightening to me to watch some of the mental, I can't think of the word right now, but some of the clicks, some of the mental leaps that you've made where you're like, you know what, I don't have to worry about this. Or wait, you ask really great questions. Something else I attribute to Tim Ferriss. Things like, what's the worst that could happen? Or is what I'm worried about real. Asking challenging questions is something I would say I probably learned it a few years ago, but I know that there were many times when I exercised that this year to free myself from worry. And it doesn't necessarily change the circumstances, but it allows us to approach the situation in a productive manner. So like the negative, the worry, the concern that we all experience at times, that it just doesn't help. It doesn't add value to anyone. And certainly doesn't make it easy to get through tough situations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
something else that I wanted to kind of touch on is, what are things that you wish that you did more of in 2019?
Did more of? Yeah. Well, it's funny. We were listening back to that goals. I remember the conversation, verbatim now that we've listened to it, but I had no idea what was on it until we went back and listened to it. And, it was funny to remember us talking about increasing our cardio. we were trying to do this, like what we thought goal setting was from textbooks and things that we've read, / just talking about what we wanted to accomplish that year. So it was funny to watch ourselves talk about it, but I really recognized that at that point I knew that I was recognizing gaps in my fitness, and I wanted to increase my cardio. I was like, I'm tired. I want to be a runner. I want to have better cardio, respiratory endurance. I remember when I was in the military, I could run for miles, and it was no big deal.
Right.
And I wanted to get back to that. And so did I do cardio 3 times a week? Heck no.
No.
And for anyone that does, man, I have so much respect for you. And I'm getting there. We're doing some creative things to try and get ourselves to do better cardio. But I will say this. So although I didn't physically do, 3 bouts of cardio every week, I did far more than I expected that I would.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't weekly, it was at least bi-weekly that I was doing something, whether that was, and it's taken different forms throughout the year, whether that was, right now it's walking for 20 minutes before my workout. I've been rehabbing some of the posture in my hips, again, kind of relapsed a little bit, doing something silly after one of our recent Spartan races. So I've been working on my hips, making sure to warm up more so that it serves me in multiple ways, this 20 minutes of walking. I'll come back to that in a second. But it was at one point when I did the 30-day challenge. We did the 30-day challenge in October or September? September. So I literally ran 5 minutes every single day for 21 days. Maybe a few more than that. And that was great. It was really nice to go through that experience. It was terrible. Even just 5 minutes, it was amazing. It was terrible to force myself to do 5 minutes of running, but what that did for me, both physically and mentally, was really great. And I do far more again than I was last year. So I've certainly made leaps. I'll come back to the point that I made that I want to talk about as far as the kind of multitasking hacks in a minute, but what's your answer to that question? What's something that you wish you would have done more of?
For me, I 100% would say unplugging. I think that with the nature of our platform.
Before you go into that, why don't you share what you did? Because it was that was really cool exercise that we did.
Yeah, so we decided that we were going to do our Thanksgiving completely unplugged, and we decided, to go big, leave our phones in the car and not touch them for the whole entire day that we were at Thanksgiving. And what we found and what we kind of felt was really cool, because you can kind of feel, the strain off of your eyes and your headaches, if you get them, kind of go away. The focus that you put on the computers and things like that is kind of just something that we're used to now because we do it all the time. And so having that break, it wasn't even that long. It was like 8 hours that we were there, and having just that little break was so nice. We were able to be so much more present with, the senses. So you're able to visually see the food better. You're better to listen to people more. You're better at just feeling the things around you. And it's really interesting too to watch everybody else, because there were so many breaks in, the eating and the hanging out and things like that, where there was space to talk and space to kind of hang out. And the natural tendency is for all of the people who are there and, everyone, anytime, to take out their phones. I mean, you see it in the stores, you see it in the airport, you see it in traffic. Everyone just is naturally, okay, there's a space, take out my phone. And so our bodies are never at a point of stillness where we just can rest. No wonder whenever we have a break, we just are anxious and we need the next thing to fill the void. And so, that experience, and there are a couple of other bouts where we did some unplugging, where we would do work days and kind of turn everything off while we were working. What
preceded that was that one exercise that we did earlier in the year, where I think it was like a week challenge
or a 21-day.
Was it our 21-day challenge?
Yeah.
I think it was during the challenge, but you were able to remove phone time. I had to run the social media accounts for a week. I think it was.
Yeah. It was during the 21 days of prayer, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of started. Sparked that whole effort. But what we were sharing overall.
Yeah, just taking the time to really unplug from everything, because it's like you put your phone down and then you go sit in front of the TV, or then you go work on your computer, or you're on your Apple Watch or whatever. You're just going from one device to another, and there's no stillness. And I think that is something I wish I did more of in 2019, and something that I really want to work on more of, just because I think that it really allows you to appreciate and be joyful for the time that you're in, the present that you're in, and you can get so caught up in what's next. And if you can really sit and enjoy the moment, I think that you'll really start to be happier and appreciate the moment that you're in more.
Yeah. I think being present is powerful. Mm-hmm. Very powerful. Real quick, as far as the whole cardio thing, so it's interesting that we set those goals to do more cardio, and I really don't remember what happened before September, before that 21-day challenge, or I think it was August, actually, now that I think about it. Regardless, before that, I know I made efforts, but it was on my mind, and I've never been the most, in any leadership role that I've had, I've never been the most electrifying, sprinter-esque, really leap out in front of other people kind of person. And but I've always been a persister, mm-hmm. which is something that I've learned about myself. And so I know that if I just keep whatever my goal is in the back of my mind, even if I struggle with it in the beginning, I'll eventually get to that goal. Mm-hmm. So with regards to the whole cardio thing, I've always been looking for ways to get more cardio in, even if it's just something random, like forcing myself to do 10 burpees in the middle of a workout, or maybe some mountain climbers before I leave, just to say that I did it. Or in this case, extending my cardio warm-up. This is just a really random kind of one-off tip that I want to offer to people, but I had a few struggles that I was able to solve with one effort. So I had some timely material that I needed to study and read, and I wasn't finding time to do so any other time. I just found myself busy, or I was too tired when I finally had a moment to sit down and read, or I wouldn't wake up early enough, whatever the case. I wanted to increase my cardio. I needed to do some healing and in my posture, but there were other things, like intangible things. I needed to slow down a little bit. And slow down physically, like when I got to the gym, I needed to slow down before I just launched into a workout. I needed to slow down in my mind and be more focused and intentional on what I was doing, because there were some symptoms of just kind of going through the motions or putting too much on my plate. And so this one simple exercise of forcing myself to stay on that treadmill for 20 minutes, and I'm not the biggest fan of treadmills either, but forcing myself to stay on that treadmill. I had a distraction. I was reading my book. I was accomplishing all of these things. I was getting my reading out of the way. I was getting my warm-up in properly. I was helping to rehab and heal my hips, and ultimately setting myself up for success. I was slowing down mentally. I was able to focus better because I remained focused on the goal. I didn't beat myself up about it, and I I stayed kind of optimistic and creative about ways to ultimately get to the goal, I was able to find it. Now, it was by accident. I don't recommend that you take, 10 months to figure out your goal. It might take that long, but the kind of one-off tip that I wanted to offer you guys is if you simply keep something on the forefront of your mind, remain open-minded, optimistic, and creative. And I say creative because too many people are just kind of waiting for things to happen. You have to add some mental energy to whatever you're trying to accomplish. If you can do those things, then ultimately you will reach your goal. What determines how long it takes, too many factors for this episode, not the purpose here. But you will get there eventually. I'm confident in it.
Absolutely. We have a whole really awesome podcast on consistency. Yeah. And I think that that's one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done, just because it is such a really awesome tool in your toolbox that a lot of people just kind of discount. And consistency does not mean perfection. It doesn't mean you have to do it every day, all day, perfectly. It just means that when you mess up, you keep going and you just keep going forward. And I think that, just like you said, it's a really awesome thing to have.
Yeah.
So something else that I wanted to talk about is the places and the things that we loved this year, and kind of travels, but also things that we did that we just, kind of loved. And so I want to start us out. A couple of things that we did. We took a spontaneous trip to Denver. You remember that one weekend? We just booked it and we went. It was 48 hours, not even.
Well, yeah, we'll probably share about the whole wedding venue equation because I think there's a lot to learn from that too. But basically what happened for the listeners is we booked all of these flights this trip up to Glacier National Park, where we were going to go look at a wedding venue. Before we looked to see, we just assumed it was going to be open when we got there, and it happened to be before they opened up for their wedding season. And it was an unusual date that they were closed. I think we had scheduled to go in June, or was it in May?
It was in June, yeah.
So nonetheless, we still had these flights booked, and if you guys know anything about us, we are relatively decent at finding good travel deals. So we had an almost free flight to Denver, and so I thought, well, heck, we have the weekend off because we planned, and we love Denver. We are kind of due for a trip, so let's just take a random trip to Denver, and
it was so fun.
It was great.
Yeah, we didn't really make plans, which is kind of rare for us. We usually do try to plan our trips, and we just kind of showed up and went with it.
We showed up. We ended up at a Rockies game.
Yeah, we went to the Red Rocks. We drove around in the snow and took pictures, and it was so fun. But,
yeah, we tried to drive up to the top of Pikes Peak, but it was closed.
Yeah.
Still a little snowy.
And that trip, why I loved it so much is because people always make excuses that they don't have enough time to travel. They can't take time off of work. They can't, do X, Y, or Z. And that trip, we literally did the whole thing and had so much fun in just a weekend. We didn't have to take any time off of work. We just did it. And it's one of my favorite times that we had.
Let's come back to the Denver trip in a minute. It's a good segue. What else did you love from this year?
This one kind of goes hand in hand, but I went on a couple retreats this year. So I did one solo retreat, which was Rise, Rachel Hollis's event. It's basically a weekend empowerment course where you have a lot of personal development and you kind of unpack your struggles and talk about how to go forward. That was really powerful because you're in a room with thousands of other women who are also at an event like that to grow and learn and change, and the environment is really awesome. And then we did a couples retreat where we got to do something like that together. That was recently in Lake Tahoe, and it was really cool to do that together, where we just kind of talked about ways to better communicate, ways to grow together, ways to really challenge each other. And I am such a proponent of retreats and getaways and things like that to work on yourself. I think that so many people don't work on themselves because they, are always working on other people. They're too busy taking care of their kids, or too busy working for their bosses, working and doing all these other things. And their personal identity kind of gets put on the wayside. And I think that is something that makes us so strong, driven, determined, all of those power words that, they teach you. But really, though, I think it just makes us better humans. I mean, it makes us more, like you said, more patient, more understanding. It definitely helps our relationship. It helps us to be better with each other. I just think that, if you are going to do anything going forward in 2020, I would look into doing a retreat. I really think it's awesome.
I think what you're sharing is maybe just a slight way to reword it is better at being human.
Yeah.
I know where your mind was going with that, and you might be thinking of the comment that Javi on our recent episode with Sarah, Live Free Warrior, and Sarah and Javi said something that was super profound. This guy is amazing. He's super smart. And he said, my, like, doing yoga, meditating, exercising, and, like, me taking care of myself is my service to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And then he elaborated and said that I, like, taking care of myself so that I'm the best version of myself for other people is the best thing I can do for people.
Yeah.
And it was that statement alone has stuck with me almost verbatim because he's had a ton of success in his career and impacted and influenced a lot of people and gone through his own struggles where he was very maybe he was very like inward focused. Mm-hmm. On what was going to bring him happiness, and he realized that there was nothing that was going to bring him happiness inside of him. By looking inside like that, he had to look outward and see how he could serve others. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was really powerful.
I think, just like you said, a lot of people carry such weight around with them and they don't even realize, and they project it onto everyone else. Just like you were saying, I think that if you deal with your own things, it just in general will make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you? What's something that you loved that you did this year? Well,
I glanced over at your sheet, and Maryssa took a page of notes. I did not take any notes because I just had this episode was kind of my brainchild, and I had a bunch of things on my heart and on my mind that I wanted to share. So I did the matcha thing and didn't take notes, but we love spending time with our family. We don't spend nearly enough time. It's very important to us, and so one of the weekends we had available, I joke when I think of free time, but one of the weekends we had available, we opted to spend time with Marissa's sister and brother-in-law and in St. Louis, where they live. And it was really wonderful. So some memories I had, it was one of the first times that I wasn't, planning and calling the shots that I can remember. It's been a while. And it was nice to just kind of have no agenda but to spend time mm-hmm. and just to connect with them. And I mean, we know them and we love them, but we haven't really had a lot of time to connect. It's not mm-hmm. like we haven't lived in St. Louis together near them. We spend time together at holidays, and when we were both still in Illinois for the first few months that Maryssa and I dated, we spent a considerable amount of time, but outside of that, we haven't really had the opportunity to get to know them. So something that was on our heart, and because of all those things, I remember what we did. We went to that funny Mexican restaurant. Funny meaning it was just decorated like a Mexican restaurant, or what someone thinks a Mexican restaurant should look like. Very colorful. And amazing food, but it was a good time with them. They hosted us at their house. We kind of did a hybrid of like what our lifestyle is like and what their lifestyle is like. And so Lauren, Marissa's sister, even was messaging back and forth with us like, hey, so, I thought we could wake up, this morning and we'll go on a nice walk at this beautiful park. That's something that sounds like what you guys would like to do. And we're like, heck yeah. And
that sounds great.
She was making plans, like, even if you guys want to work out and stuff. And I think that weekend we opted to not. Yeah. So we said, you know what, we really appreciate that, but this weekend's all about you guys. So we're not going to take extra time to go work out, because even if it's a quick workout, it's still it can be it can be extra time that we wanted to spend with them.
Yeah, and that was so fun because then we walked and we got to talk and be outside and be active, and then we spent the rest of the day. We went and tried a couple different wineries and and then we just kind of hung out, and we were up in a place that didn't have any service, so again it forced us to hang out and talk instead of be on our phones, and it was really cool because we don't get to do those kind of things that often, and definitely we're super encouraged just taking that time out and spending some time with our family. So it was awesome.
I do want to take a dive back to that Denver trip. So one of the things that I invisibly wrote down was talking a little bit about why we're doing the different things that we're doing. And I think it's important for people to know because we do have a heart for making this, or we do have a goal of making this whole platform a full-time business that Maryssa and I can both work in. And we have a little bit of ways to go before it's there. But that does not supersede why we do what we do. So I don't know what the volume of reminders that we need to send out is, what the appropriate volume, like how many times we need to remind everyone why we do things. But we always want to keep that in the forefront and let people know this is the real heart that we have behind what we do. And the Denver trip made me think about it. So we go on this Denver trip, and to us it's almost by accident that it happened, but it really wasn't. We're always prepared to kind of go on a whim, and we've established systems and connections and processes that allow us to do these things, to go travel when we want to, if and when we want to go really wherever we want. I mean, within reason, we could, two people that still have full-time jobs, we could kind of do whatever we want, but we don't use that necessarily flippantly. Yeah. We do things in kind of a measured fashion. So we have a somewhat regimented way that we pick and choose how and when we travel. This trip was a calculated trip. We plan on it being much bigger than just going to Denver, and it just so happened that things worked out and we were able to go to Denver. And so we went there, no plans at all. Some intentions, we knew of some places that we wanted to go, and it's real easy to see, just go to Google, top 10 places to visit near Denver and pick and choose. But when we returned and we were telling people about the trip, people were amazed and awestruck. Like, what? You went to Denver this weekend? Like, you guys ever sit still? We get that a lot. But yeah. They were blown away. Like, oh, I wish I could go to Denver. Oh, I love Denver. We hear these, like, well, when was the last time you went to Denver? 15 years ago, and different things like that. And, I remember hearing we don't hear it too often anymore, but because I think we kind of run with different crowds. But what we used to hear is, oh, I wish I could afford to go to Denver. And we were thinking about it, what our travel budget is. I mentioned eventually I will share what our annual travel budget is. It's not a secret. It's just that it's just a complicated
spreadsheet that we haven't put together. It's a
complicated formula, yeah. But we receive all of this feedback, and one thing that I admire about Maryssa, and I think it's true of myself too, is that I'm always observing and trying to learn from what goes on around me. I sometimes, to a fault, I'm a little bit too hyper aware about all of the different sensory elements that I receive. So we're thinking about what we're going to do with this platform and how we're going to kind of make it into a business, knowing where our true heart is and where all that lies. And we have all these comments and questions that come in. And we got to realize that most people aren't fill in the blank as much as they would like to. So they're not as healthy as they want to be. They don't travel as much as they want. They don't have as much adventure as they wish they had. There may be some relationship things that they wish could improve a little bit. It's kind of, I don't know exactly how to explain it in a general term, but I think you guys get the point. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, without going all the way back to the specific story, that's kind of how this whole platform was born. This is something that we do pretty well based on popular opinion, I guess. I mean, we just kind of live our life and attempt to share it as best we can. Yeah. But most people seem to think that we are able to do things that they're not able to do. Yeah. And that is, in one sentence, that's why we do what we do, because we want to completely debunk that myth. Maryssa and I are probably at the bottom of the totem pole. There are people that have way more resource and ability than we do to travel to cooler and better places, spend far more time. Maryssa and I are usually in and out of a place pretty quick. We like experiencing, we like overnight trips, 2-day trips. You know, I think we talked about doing a 4-day cruise next year. And, anyway, we're the reason that we do this is because we truly just want to impart the type of life experiences that we have on other people.
Yeah.
And they bring us so much joy. Like when we're able to come back and talk about how beautiful Denver is, and, you know, the experience that we have there, and even just small things like, you know, working out and then having a great meal together, and, you know, just random, you know, it might happen in 30 seconds, just catching a really quick view or some scenery. Even those little memories that we get to come back and share with other people, and they add value to people. It's something that sticks with us for a long time that we're able to share with other people. It's a really, really incredible feeling. And so without going into too much detail, the reason we do the things that we do, like our wellness coaching, where we take people kind of under our wings and we help them accomplish whatever their fitness goal is, whatever their health and wellness goal is. You know, maybe it's figuring out how to stay healthy and fit with a very, very busy lifestyle, or if you're traveling a lot. The reason that we do the Fit Adventures, where we, you know, plan a custom trip from start to finish at whatever level you want. The reason we put out all of the content on our website, these episodes, and you know, all of the different things that we do is really because we just want more people to do what we do better.
Yeah.
So
I think, just like you said, I think that if we can empower someone's, you know, next steps for them to live a more happy, healthy, and adventurous life, then that's a goal. And that's something that we work towards in everything we do. And we kind of use that as a basis of the things that we put out is, you know, how can we teach people to do exactly what we do for free? And we give you guys all the tools. We are always here to help if you guys have questions or you need a little bit of a push in the right direction. But we just want you guys to live your best lives. And no matter what we say or do on this podcast, on our page, on our Instagram, anything, it's up to you to do that. And so if you listen to all of this and you're like, wow, that's really great, and then you just go continue about your routine and don't change anything, then, you know, we're not accomplishing our goal. So if it's something that we can just inspire you to maybe sign up for that race that you've been wanting to, or travel to that location that you really are excited about, or go to that retreat that you've been looking at, whatever it is, take that next step to push yourself to, you know, something that you've always wanted to do. Get a little bit more adventure in your life.
Yeah. So this year, I was just thinking, I read another one of your notes. This year when we made our vision board, which is a really fun exercise, I encourage you guys to go do it if you want our feedback, which would be minimal about doing a vision board. Probably going to give you a link anyway. But you should create a vision board with visual images of what you want to accomplish in the year to come. And maybe not just the year to come, but over the next 5, 10, 20 years. But we included a word at the top of our vision board. And ironically, I just remembered the word. It's compassion.
Compassion, yeah.
And so it's interesting to look back and see how that played out this year. Yeah. Because and I feel like every single day I make more strides to be more compassionate, even to the people in Houston traffic. But it's a fun exercise. I saw that you had written something down for next year, which we're not going to dive into right now, but do you want to share that? Or do you want to talk about this? Are you going to say that word on the podcast?
I'm not going to tell my word of the year until next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But if you guys don't have a word of the year, I would totally just suggest that you think about it. Because if you're ever struggling or stuck and you don't have a direction, I think it really helps to kind of center yourself around what it is you're trying to achieve in the current year. You can have a word of the week if you want, but I think it's something that you should have a direction. A direction is very important. But the note that Mike pointed to is that under the things that I learned this year, I wrote podcasting is the shit. Because
and that moment will go down in history as the first time Probably not the only time that Maryssa swears on our podcast.
Yes. So
we're going to get a text message from your mom and dad. What did you say?
Why did you say that?
Yeah.
No. The reason that I wrote that, and something that I absolutely adore Mike for sharing this lifestyle with me, but also you guys for allowing us to do this, is we have gotten to chat with some of the coolest people. Yeah. We have so many really awesome interviews coming up, and I get goosebumps like thinking about it. And ask Mike, like, we talked to some people who I like fangirled over, and I'm like hyperventilating before we got on the episode because I just get so excited. And like, these people would have never sat down in a coffee shop with me in a million years if I was just some stranger. But podcasting, you know, it opened the door for that. And we've gotten to interview these people and hear their stories, and they've answered questions for us and for our platform, for our business, and just like as general friends after that too, just because of this door. And so to kind of sum that point up, if there is something that kind of scares you a little bit, but also excites you at the same time that you're looking to pursue, definitely do it. Like, podcasting terrifies me because I don't like talking in front of large groups of people. I don't like hearing the sound of my own voice recorded. You know, it just is something that I was very nervous about. And for Mike to kind of push us into that comfort, or into that, out of our comfort zone and into that space, was really cool this year. And I've kind of really loved it.
It was I think back, it was so interesting and challenging, and I would say almost difficult at first. I mean, there were just the way that my mind works, and where I'd be hyper aware of basically everything that was wrong with what we were doing, the platform, the company, and everything. It's so interesting to see that we're here now. Again, still largely, and we always will be, but still largely in the pursuit of how we envision the business going, having made the progress that we have. So
it's really cool. If you don't believe us, first of all, you can just listen to that really sad, poor audio clip that we played at the beginning of how far we've come, because I think it's funny to listen back on that and be like, oh my gosh, we sounded so interesting. Or you can go back and listen to our first couple episodes, but just in the time, I mean, for me, the amount of comfort and just like, you know, feeling just good about what we're doing. At first,
like,
I was
we're actually adding value.
Yeah. I was so worried at first of like, you know, silly things, and none of it's true.
That's right. So guys, we're going to sign off here. Thank you for listening to our year in review episode. This is not an update episode. We're going to do that next year.
Yeah. So,
or at least publish it next year. We might record it this year.
If you guys have any questions about anything we talked about, feedback, anything that you want to add, please just screenshot this episode and put it on your Instagram and tag us, or just send us a message and say, hey, I have some questions about this, or I'm going to do this for next year. Tell us what your word of the year is. Whatever you want, we would love to see what you guys are doing. I
will share this. We do our own market research and thorough study about what we choose to talk about, because we want to talk about things that are current and interesting to people. There's nothing better than our own research, than somebody from our audience coming and saying, hey, I am dealing with this exact issue right this second. Can you help me real time?
Yeah.
So if I do have any requests, that is it. If you guys are listening to this episode, something comes to mind, a question, comment, feedback, constructive criticism, non-constructive criticism, anything, like, send us a message. We're wide open books, and more importantly, we just want to add value. It's almost like a drug to us. Like, if I can help you for as close to free as possible, and it's going to make a lasting impression on you, please, that is exactly what I want to do.
Absolutely. So I think that'll do it on our end.
Everything for here. Well, thank you guys. Listen to Todd. He does our intros and outros on the podcast. He's super awesome. We're super thankful for him. So a quick shout out. And for now, we are signing off for 2019. You'll hear from us on a couple recorded episodes with some awesome guests.
We got some good interviews.
Romaru.
Yeah.
Adam Schaefer from Mind Pump. And then someone that's very near and dear to Maryssa and I, close friends. Not a Instagram celebrity, but he's a celebrity in our hearts, and you'll hear why. And some more stuff through the end of the year, and then we'll come back in 2020 and kick things off right.
Yeah, so you guys have a happy New Year and a Merry Christmas. We'll see you guys soon.
Love you guys.
Here at Two Fit Travelers, we have a mission to add value to you. If we've impacted you in any way, please consider sharing this episode with a friend or family member that could use an encouraging word. Your support means the world to us, and we thank you for listening. We'll look forward to speaking with you on the next episode. Stay adventurous and be well.